So our first speaker I met in an Uber in San Francisco and got to know a little bit about him, which was phenomenal. I'm sure he wished he were in another Uber, but too late. We were already there. So I'm going to introduce Howard Rosen. Howard is the co-founder and CEO of Evident Vascular, where he leads the development of advanced AI-powered intravascular ultrasound technology to improve vascular imaging and patient outcomes. Howard has more than 30 years of experience in the medical device industry. He has a proven track record of building and scaling cardiovascular businesses, driving product innovation, and leading successful acquisitions. Prior to Evident, Howard held senior leadership roles at companies including Intact Vascular and Vesper Medical, which were both acquired by Philips, as well as executive positions at Haemonetics, BG Medical, Boston Scientific. And I always have to say something even a little more personal than the way I opened it. Howard and his wife, Kristen, reside full-time on Cape Cod, which I think is cool. They cherish spending time with their first grandchild, Carson. And beyond family life, Howard founded and leads the mentoring program for the Northeastern University baseball team, where he supports student athletes in early career development. So, all in line. So, you see why I picked Howard up in that Uber and why he is our first speaker today. So, at this point, I'll turn it over and ask Howard to start.
Well, thank you very much, Ingrid, for that very kind introduction. And yes, it was a fortuitous Uber ride. We were going to the Fogarty Institute, and I don't think I knew what I was getting into, but I'm really glad I got into this because, as Ingrid mentioned, I have a passion for mentoring. I have a passion for talking about career pathing, and it really started, as Ingrid mentioned. When a Northeastern University baseball player reached out to me and said, "Hey, how do I get into sales in medical devices? You've had and marketing. You've had such a long career at Boston Scientific. How did that start?" Because and I hate to say, our generation grew up, the word mentoring never entered the lexicon. We didn't know what that meant. It was almost a sign of weakness to ask for help and advice. That was something that wasn't embraced, but I really embrace talking about these types of things and happy to share a little bit about my background. So, and Ingrid and I talked about this. I mean, I grew up in a blue collar town of Brockton, Massachusetts, which is south of Boston. My mother was a nurse. My dad was a construction worker, and I spent a good part of my childhood at South Shore Hospital, south of Boston, on the cancer ward, learning about healthcare providers and really learning about what it took to take care of patients. And I knew I wanted to be in healthcare, just didn't know where I wanted to be. And so decided to go to Northeastern University, played baseball there, studied marketing. And if any of you know about Northeastern University, that's where the whole co-op opportunity really started. And I had jobs in so many different areas because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted marketing, but I thought medical, but I didn't know. I worked in the banking industry, construction supplies, and these supplies were manhole covers and catch basins. And I thought I was made for life. These were Northeastern University graduates that were the CEO of the company, VP of marketing sales, and they said, "When we retire, you're going to run this company in Brockton, Massachusetts." And things just didn't feel right. And I hit an inflection point when I had a course in labor economics in, I don't know what year it was, and the professor said, "When you're in your maximum earning potential years, the baby boomer generation is going to need a lot of healthcare. So think about
Mhm.
pharmaceutical, think about med devices." And that was an epiphany for me. And so it was in my fourth year, Northeastern at the time was a 5 year school, that I had that epiphany to say, look, I want to be in medical devices because I want to be part of that solution that takes care of these patients that are going to need it. And I was just really fascinated by marketing. And that's how much I knew when I was 21 years old. I didn't really know much, but I knew what I wanted to do. And this was lesson
Mhm.
number one because I did so many jobs I didn't want to do. And it was such an early lesson that these early jobs that you have in your career really clarify what you don't want to do because you did it, but you don't realize that when you're in the moment. It's just great reflection as you think back. But I had just such a great upbringing, put myself through school, and I didn't have anyone in my family that remotely came close to doing some of the things that I've done in my career. So it was really something that I found I worked the hard way and just figured this out on my own without a lot of direction. But the day after I graduated Northeastern, I started my journey at Boston Scientific. Literally graduated on a Sunday, started on Monday. Barbara Bush was our commencement speaker. Never forget that. And now it's Hillary Duff is speaking at Northeastern. And so I started at Boston Scientific at the very lowest position you can start at, customer service. And then they started an inside sales group. And they said, hey, we want to recruit folks that can come in here and eventually be outside sales reps. And my mind graduating Northeastern was I wanted to be a general manager in marketing because that's all you learned in business school. But you didn't learn you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. No one really ever told you that. And you need to get a lot of different experiences. So I did that at Boston Scientific. I spent 2 years in inside sales customer service, then got sent out to Detroit, Michigan, and was a sales rep for 4 years, and then went into marketing and spent over 11 years in product marketing, franchise general management roles. And then I hit a decision point in 2008 where I just felt that I did everything I wanted to do in marketing and I wanted to do more. And I just wanted to learn more functions within Boston Scientific and different roles. And I went into corporate and went from being, on that high potential list of individuals to move all over the world and do all sorts of different things to be an individual contributor in learning. And I dipped my toe into corporate sales and other types of corporate functions. And it was great learning because I had an entrepreneurial spirit I didn't realize I had. But there were so many lessons I learned in 21 years at Boston Sci that, number one was, no one thinks about your career and your progression as much as you do, as much as you talk about, hey, I want to get to that next step. And we were all so maniacal to get to that next step, to get to that next promotion. You own your own career, you own your own plan, and you own your own foundation and the bricks and the foundation that I'd like to talk about when I mentor folks that they may not all go in the same order, but you got to be really smart in how you build your career and really diversify your experience and do that early on in your career because there is no straight line to from the bottom of the entry level positions to the top. A lot of people think that there are, and there are some people that are lucky to do that, but that's not the real world. And you got to really take chances and experiment with different roles and that's what I did. I started taking a path where it wasn't a sprint to the top. It was really owning that career progression and understanding it's a marathon, not a sprint. I took risks at Boston, but I didn't take enough of them because failing back at that day, taking risks wasn't in the culture the way that it is now at Boston, from what I know. But I had a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. I didn't have that corporate polish that a lot of folks have and feel like they need to have to get to the top. But I just was a scrapper. And that relates back to how I started in my career, where I grew up and how I looked at my career. And I needed to take that risk of being an entrepreneur. So I did that. And I got bloody, really bloody. Ingrid, you mentioned BG medicine and Haemonetics. I was a fish out of water when I left Boston Scientific. I joined a startup company in the diagnostic space, didn't know anything about it, thought I could, make a difference, but the decisions that the company made on the product 10 years prior to me joining caught up when we commercialized, and I helped shut that company down. And I thought I was an abject failure of a career decision. 5 years later, I realized that it was an invaluable experience to get bloody, to fail, to be part of a team and a company that had to get shut down. Didn't feel like a career defining moment in the positive side at the moment, but I realized later when I joined Intact Vascular and Vesper Medical, I learned a lot of mistakes to avoid as a startup company. And as a CEO right now, I still think back to those moments of those decision points and those lessons learned, and that was invaluable. And so I hit an inflection point in my career and I was recruited to come back into the vascular space and Intact Vascular and Vesper. And I needed to reinvent myself. And, I was at Haemonetics at the time, running a business unit on the executive committee. And I thought that that's what I wanted to do, but I was further away from the things I loved, my passion of the vascular space. And I really felt that I wanted to get back into the startup world in a space I knew really well, embrace the entrepreneurial spirit that I had, and join a CEO that was also a mentor and had that same type of passion that I have about mentoring folks to achieve their highest level of where they want to be. And Bruce Shook was that guy. And he's like, look, the vascular space, the first thing about being a CEO, you're a great leader, but let me teach you how to fundraise. Let me teach you how to lead a company. And And it was because of that relationship I had with him that we fit together so perfectly. And on that board was Justin Klein from Vensana Capital and Cynthia Yee, who I think has spoke here before. At least Ingrid, I know you know Cynthia. And they saw what I could do. And when they decided to start their first company, their first spin out that they wanted to invest in from inception, they asked me to be the CEO of that company. And so it was a real culmination of so many things that I lived through, and inflection points that I made along the way, and some of the lessons I learned in some of the last part of my career that I've been in is you got to embrace failing and taking risk, and it's okay to fail. And I like to say fail forward because that means you have the courage to take on risks, the courage to take on new things, and it's okay to get a little bloody, but as long as you're learning, because those lessons that you learn early in your career are invaluable. When I interview people, I don't want to hear about their successes. I want to hear about what you learned and why and what you would do differently. And really embracing being vulnerable, because that's authentic and that's real. And real authentic leaders, I have found, really make a difference in companies they lead, interactions and relationships they have with folks that work for them or those that are in their ecosystem, and seek mentors. Because look, a lot of us that have gone through the type of career we've gone through at different stages, it doesn't mean you seek mentors that have 30 years of experience. Seek out mentors that have 5, have 10, have 15, because every lesson you learn along the way is relatable. And avoid making mistakes that other people have made. It's okay to fail, but fail forward. But don't avoid asking those tough questions to folks that have been through it. So that's the quick intro. Ingrid, I hope that hits the note on the mark is what you were after. I enjoyed the conversation we had, and I'm looking forward to chatting with the folks that we're connected with later. So hope that was helpful.